Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast live stream. We're going a bit earlier today. It is 3:08 p.m. in Texas, which means it is now after midnight. It's after 1 o'clock a.m. in Israel. And what a day in God's land. In case you missed it, and I don't think you did at this point, the Iranian regime directly attacked Israel, launching some 181 ballistic missiles at the world's one and only Jewish state. Folks, it's being said that this is the largest ballistic missile attack ever in world history that Iran conducted today against Israel. Again, 181 ballistic missiles. Now, you might hearken back to the April 2024 attack that Iran conducted, again, directly against Israel. That was over 300 projectiles, but that was a mixture, right? Ballistic, cruise missiles, drones. This was strictly 181 ballistic missiles that blanketed every inch of Israel. If you see the maps, those red dots, those red circles of incoming, I mean, folks, from north to south, that's number one. Number two, probably millions of Israelis, no doubt, in a tiny country, were in bomb shelters earlier. Our good friend Yair Pinto, our TBN Israel correspondent, was texting me with his family from a bomb shelter. My good friend Danny the Digger Herman, who you've seen so many times here in the show, texting with his family from a bomb shelter. So this was life. It is life for Israelis, sadly, because of this Iranian axis, this ring of fire that surrounds Israel. But this was certainly life for every Israeli just a few hours ago. Now, it came in two waves, apparently, this Iranian barrage. Iran says their retaliation, this is, and caveat here, this is as of 3:10 p.m. Central Time in the United States, 4:10 p.m. Eastern Time in the United States. I preface it by saying, as of now, the Iranian regime says the attack is over. And Israel has said to the people of Israel, Israeli officials have said, look, you can leave your bomb shelters. It's okay to come out. Again, that's as of now. As you watch this, if you're not watching me live, perhaps you'll watch this 5 hours from now, and you may have a case of, God forbid, Iran fired another wave, or Israel is in the midst of retaliating, of responding to this unprecedented Iranian assault. And you might say, wait, unprecedented, they also attacked in April, but this, although it was less projectiles, it was more lethal projectiles. These were all ballistic missiles. Again, 181 was the count as of now that we know of. And they travel at a much greater distance. A few of my colleagues said, wow, this happened fast. If you remember that April 13th attack by Iran, you were waiting hours for some of these cruise missiles and drones to reach from Iran to Israel. It was a slow-moving train, and most of them were intercepted before they even entered Israeli airspace. In fact, some 99%, it was a miraculous display, I believe, of air defense, of missile defense, I should say. But ballistic missiles travel in 12 minutes, roughly. That's all, folks. 12 minutes is all you have to prepare when ballistic missiles travel from Iran to Israel. So a much different beast today. Now, what was the success rate or lack of success rate for the Iranian regime? I mentioned back in April, 99% intercepted. One little girl, a Bedouin girl back then, wounded seriously from shrapnel. Today, well, the results are still coming in. What we do know is not every one of these projectiles was intercepted. At least 8 or 9 got through, certainly. Many fell in open spaces. Many more were intercepted, and the United States says that they helped Israel, as they did in April, helped Israel intercept these incoming ballistic missiles. That's a good thing. But don't expect anything more than a defensive posture from the United States under the current leadership, or lack thereof, I should say. That's what you'll get. You'll get them. Hey, that's a good thing. You'll get certainly the U.S. chipping in on missile defense and helping Israel in that way. But there will be every effort. Prepare yourselves. And it's going on right now through back channels for the Biden-Harris administration to attempt to restrain Israel here at every turn. Remember back in April, Joe Biden said to Bibi Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, when those missiles were intercepted, take the win, Bibi. You got the win. Just take the win. Don't strike back. Certainly, that is the message from the Biden administration once again, no doubt. The Biden-Harris administration. Apparently, the two of them were in the war room, the situation room, monitoring all this in real time, according to the White House. But the extent of damage, direct hits, we're not quite sure yet as of around 3:15 p.m. Texas time. Again, if you're watching this a few hours later, you might say, wow, Stakelbeck, we've got a lot more details. You're behind. No, no, no. We're going live just about 2 hours after this stopped for now that we know of. And Iran says we're satisfied. Our bloodlust is satisfied. This is our much anticipated and awaited retaliation for the death of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh back on August 1st, overnight. Remember, the Hamas overall leader eliminated in Tehran in a guest house as he slept under the noses of the Iranian regime. That and the death of not so dearly departed terror master Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, Hezbollah's overall leader, on Friday, September 27th, meant that Iran and the subsequent smashing of Hezbollah, and Hezbollah being completely on the ropes and Hamas being largely crushed, meant the Iranian regime, and by the way, an Iranian general killed in that strike against Nasrallah. All of that to say, Iran felt like it had to save face and do something. Two things here. Number one, this certainly wasn't enough because, as I mentioned, the toll of damage is still kind of coming in now as I come to you. It does not appear that any Israelis were killed, thank God. It does appear some were wounded running to bomb shelters, perhaps by shrapnel as well. And again, we're not getting ahead of ourselves here. This is what we know at this hour. We pray no death, obviously, no serious injuries, obviously. But again, folks, what we do know right now, many of these ballistic missiles were intercepted. That's number one. Number two, many fell in open spaces. Number three, the U.S. joined Israel in missile defense. Number four, it doesn't appear at this moment that anyone was killed, although I'm just hearing, looking at alerts on my phone, that a Palestinian in Jericho may very well, sadly, have been killed, an Arab man in Jericho, just as an Arab Bedouin girl was wounded in April. So Iran, although they hate the Jewish people, they don't discriminate when it comes to killing and maiming across the board. Remember, we say the Iranian regime will fight to the last drop of Arab blood. What do I mean by that? The Iranians are not Arab. Some Arabs live in Iran, yes, but the vast majority are Persian. They're not Arabs, folks. And there's a rivalry there. Yet Iran has no compunction in using Arab Hamas, Arab Hezbollah, Arab Houthis, Arab Shia militias in Iraq and Syria as cannon fodder, quite frankly. But the Iranian regime's MO has always been, look, we'll let them do the dirty work. We've got what I call implausible deniability. We didn't do it. It was Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the militias. We didn't do it. Well, now the Iranian regime's grimy fingerprints, I should say, not the Iranian people, the main victims of this regime, but the regime, the Ayatollahs, their grimy fingerprints are all over these ballistic missiles. They did it. They claimed it. We did it. This was our revenge for Haniyeh and Nasrallah. Now, Israel, if you dare strike back, we'll hit you even harder. That's what Iran's saying. And Israel says, number one, and again, it's 3:17 now in Texas, right? PM, United States. And 11, apologies, got my time zones mixed up. I said it's about 1 a.m. in Israel. No, it's about 11:17 p.m. in Israel, 8 hours ahead of Texas. Time zones can be tricky. I'm all over the place. I apologize for that. But it may be a long night. Fasten your seatbelts, because the head of the IDF, Hagari, said, look, we're going to be striking tonight. Key point here, folks, key phrase, throughout the Middle East. The offensive in Lebanon continues against Hezbollah. Israeli soldiers now on the ground. Gaza continues. Syria as well. Will that response against Iran come tonight? Hagari also added later, look, we'll respond at a time of our choosing. The element of surprise. Obviously, Iran's on high alert. Iran right now has closed its airspace. We're going to have much more to say about this, folks, tonight, as a matter of fact, and probably even more up-to-date information at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I am hosting, mark your calendars for tonight, clear your schedule, a 90-minute special on TBN from 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Those times I do have right, and those time zones I do have right, I assure you. From 7:30 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time on TBN. You can watch on TBN Plus as well on your phone, whatever, on the app. But on TBN, it's a Stakelbeck Tonight special, Israel Under Attack. And by the way, Israel quite possibly going on the attack by the time I come to you live. We have an all-star roster of guests lined up from on the ground in Israel, Yair Pinto, others with breaking updates, 90 minutes strong, TBN, Stakelbeck Tonight special tonight. Do not miss it. And hey, while you're at it, if you like this live coverage, breaking news, current events from the world's most chaotic region, the Middle East, focusing on Israel, how it all impacts you no matter where you live, be sure to subscribe to the Watchman channel right here on YouTube. Click the notification bell so you get alerts every time a new video is posted. Hard to believe, we're only about 3,000 subscribers away from 1 million for such a time as this. And just through the grace of God that he's enabled us to reach a broad audience around the world with this timely message of truth in times where good is called evil and evil is called good, as the prophet Isaiah described very accurately. And you might say, why are you quoting the prophet Isaiah? Well, this is news, current events from a biblical perspective, unapologetically. If you like that, be sure to subscribe, because at the end of the day, we could talk about the natural, the physical all day long, but folks, at its root, this is a spiritual battle. And this Iranian-led ring of fire is demonic. It's actually a demonic death cult. And I said on yesterday's live stream, by the way, if you miss any of our live streams, just go to Newscast right there under archives. You can see all of them. I said that evil is arrogant and evil can be quite stupid. And we've said that on October 7th and 8th, Hamas and Hezbollah signed their own death warrants, unbeknownst to them in their arrogance. October 7th, obviously, the Hamas massacre, invasion of southern Israel. October 8th, Hezbollah begins unilaterally firing rockets at Israel. Another question for you, and we've got a highly educated audience, viewership, weigh in here on the chat. Did the Iranian regime just sign its death warrant? Here's the big question. The dust is settling with what happened a few hours ago. Iran attacked. Again, for the second time, attacked Israel directly. How does Israel respond? That's all anyone's talking about now, right? While everyone's still watching and ensuring that there won't be another Iranian wave of missiles, anything's possible. But how will Israel respond? Folks, I don't think Israel, despite the best efforts, I should say worst efforts, of the West, led by the Biden administration, weeping and gnashing its teeth and begging Israel not to respond, I don't think this is one that Israel can take on the chin like it essentially did in April. Back in April, Israel struck a site in Natanz, near Iran's Natanz nuclear facility. It was kind of a message delivered that, hey, we can hit you anytime, any place, including in the shadow of one of your main nuclear facilities in Natanz. But it was not the kind of, considering it was some say today, largest ballistic missile attack. Some say that April 2024 attack was the largest launch of projectiles at one time, over 300. You would think that that would warrant a massive Israeli response, but we didn't really see that. Israel, to a large extent, kind of pulled its punches, no doubt, due to Biden administration pressure. That same pressure, I can assure you folks, right now is being applied relentlessly. Bibi has shown a spine of steel over the past month in particular in saying to the Biden administration, you know what, you do you, and we're going to do what we need to do to protect the people of Israel, whether it's taking out Hezbollah leaders, crushing Hamas in Rafah, and much more. I would think this time around, I would be very surprised if Israel does not strike back against Iran directly. I don't know what kind of form or fashion that's going to take. But is it all on the table? What do you think? Are Iran's oil installations, where they get a lot of the revenue that goes to fund their terror machine, missiles, and the nuclear program and the rest, are they on the table? Iran's economy already struggling, right? Is Iran's nuclear program on the table? Are those Iranian nuclear facilities fair game for Israel now? Folks, it's all on the table. And I think a lot of people were shocked at how far Israel was willing to go with Hezbollah. Certainly, they won't take out Nasrallah, and then they did. Are Iran's leaders? Could they be potential targets of Israel? Listen, Ayatollah Khamenei is in hiding right now. The Iranian regime has shared as much. He's in an undisclosed and secure location. The problem for them is Nasrallah also felt that he was an undisclosed and secure location. So did Haniyeh and others. So as Netanyahu has said over the past few days, the long arm of Israel seems tiny country with a long arm that seems to reach throughout the entire region into places that you may not expect. So what shape does Israel's response take? Is another option no response at all? I think that's disastrous. Israel has to reestablish deterrence with Iran. It's certainly done it with Hamas and Hezbollah. Now it needs to reestablish deterrence with Iran and say, this will not be tolerated. And folks, no nation would tolerate this. And by the way, we'll talk about the Tel Aviv terror attack, which happened concurrently with the missile barrage. We'll hit on that in a minute. But let me say this. No nation would tolerate this. Some are saying already, you see the geniuses on X, formerly known as Twitter. Well, Israel, Iran had to do something to save face. Just take it on the chin. No one was killed, no heavy damage. Take it on the chin. We don't want to escalate into a broader war. The same thing they all said in April. And then Iran did it again today. They were emboldened at the lack of response. No other nation would have 181 ballistic missiles fired at it by a hostile adversary and have its people frightened in bomb shelters, little kids, women, the elderly running to bomb shelters for hours on end. No other nation would accept that. No other nation would be expected to not retaliate to that. Yet Israel's being asked, look, stand down, don't retaliate. And the same in Lebanon, stand down, ceasefire now. The same in Gaza, stand down, ceasefire now. Could you imagine if Bibi would have listened to these people? Where we'd be right now? Hezbollah would continue to be that 800-pound gorilla that everyone had built up. Hamas would be alive and kicking. Much more than just a ragtag guerrilla force, which it's been reduced to by Israel over the past year. Nasrallah would be alive, helping to engineer and direct Hezbollah and Iranian attacks from his bunker. We could go on. What did Israel avoid by not heeding calls by Biden-Harris for ceasefire? I mean, this really strikes me. You're calling for Israel to stand down and pull its punches just when it has its greatest foe on the ropes. Iran spent 42 years building Hezbollah up into this monster on Israel's northern border to the tune of some 60, 70,000 Israelis being forced to evacuate from their homes for a year. The north is a ghost town. Netanyahu himself said it in his UN speech. I've been there in recent months. It's a ghost town. Hezbollah has been permitted to fire over 8,000 rockets in the past year, evacuating an entire region of Israel. A diabolical, formidable foe. And now, finally, after 42 years after Hezbollah was founded by Iran back in 82, Israel has them on the ropes. Israel has them right where they want them. The Biden-Harris response? Stand down. Don't finish the job. Ceasefire now. Leave them alive to rebuild. Kick the can down the road. And you'll have to fight this battle another day anyway, but do it anyway, because an election's coming up next month, and you're making things very difficult for us, Israel, because we're not very good when it comes to international crises and foreign policy. We're much more concerned with transforming the United States from within. That's the message. And Bibi needed to say, sorry, but this is an existential threat that must be dealt with. Give you an idea. If Bibi did listen to this insane advice from the likes of Emmanuel Macron in France and others, and the UN, of course, This is what Israel would be dealing with. Here's the headline from Times of Israel. I'm just reading this directly off my phone. The IDF said that 3,000 terrorists were waiting to attack northern Israel after October 7th. Hezbollah's elite Radwan force, you know, that same Radwan force that on September 20th, their entire leadership was destroyed by Israel in an airstrike in Beirut, including Ibrahim Akil, their leader. They were the elite force. The Radwan force was perched on Israel's northern border, throughout that border area, ready to invade. As a matter of fact, on September 20th, when they were wiped out, that top Radwan leadership, they were planning an invasion of the Galilee. And for years, they've been openly threatening, we're going to conquer the Galilee. Nasrallah himself said it. So if Israel would have heeded the pleas of Biden, Harris, Macron, and others, other weak-willed Western leaders, then you'd be staring at a potential October 7th style attack of much greater magnitude in the north. There's Hamas and there's Hezbollah. Hezbollah much more powerful than Hamas. And we saw what Hamas could do on October 7th. So that's just one small sampling of what Israel was able to avoid by not heeding very unwise counsel. And it's another reason I say that right now, Benjamin Netanyahu really is the leader of the free world, or what's left of it. He's a Churchillian figure in the Middle East. I say that without hesitation. Do you see anyone else across the global landscape right now who's stepping up and showing and achieving peace? Eventually, he will get it through strength, because he will force Israel's enemies to submit. And that's what point we're at with the Iranian regime. They're not getting the memo. And some people are saying, well, it was clearly a limited attack today, just enough so they could save face. Let them go. They saved face. Let them save face. No, because then they'll do it again and again and again. I believe that's Israel's view on it. And what they did do, if Israel doesn't succumb to international pressure here, what they did do is open the door wide open, where Israel could say, hey, this isn't some preemptive strike. This is a defensive response to an Iranian strike, to an Iranian provocation. They struck us first, just as Hamas did on October 7th, just as Hezbollah did on October 8th. So I ask you again, what will Israel do? How will Israel retaliate? Should Israel stand down? Do some actually believe that? I don't believe they should. It's not, by the way, warmongering to say that. It's common sense in times where common sense is not so common. You cannot let a nation unleash a barrage of 181 ballistic missiles upon your heads, the largest ballistic missile attack in history, force your residents into bomb shelters, and then say, well, at least no one got killed. It's over now. It's not how it works. The enemies of Israel are watching. And I can tell you that Russia right now is saying, get out of Lebanon, Israel. And Israel's carrying out these, we don't have a lot of details actually so far, folks, but carrying out what are reported to be limited special forces type raids. They've gone into Hezbollah tunnels, but they're in Lebanon. Israeli forces are in Lebanon conducting operations on the ground. We know that. Russia is saying get out. Turkey, Erdogan is saying get out. And you can bet that Iran, Russia, and Turkey are powwowing right now and figuring out what's next. And Turkey's rhetoric, Erdogan is a dangerous anti-Israel demagogue. I don't say that lightly. He is, under his leadership, Turkey is not NATO. It's more like NINO, NATO in name only. And we're talking big picture here. I mentioned in the beginning, look, it's a spiritual battle. Look no further than the book of Ezekiel, chapters 38 and 39. We've talked about it a bunch here, the war of Gog and Magog. Have we ever seen Iran, Turkey, Russia come so closely together? Three nations that were at each other's throats for centuries. Now, for the first time in history, are cleaving closer and closer together with a shared animus against Israel, Russia in Syria at Israel's doorstep. And as Iran's, we've been discussing this the past few days as well, as Iran's proxy strategy continues to unravel, as Hamas, Gaza's, the ring of fire, Gaza's off the grid now. The Gazan ring to that ring of fire eliminated. Perhaps the Lebanon one with Hezbollah will be as well. And the Houthis have been dealt some heavy blows by Israel. Israel hasn't focused on the Houthis, but when Israel has in the past few months, it's dealt heavy blows to the Houthis. I look for Iran to say strength now could be found more in alliances with nation states. We've got our proxy network. They've taken their lumps. We've said, look, Hezbollah's too big to fail, and was this Iran's foray to say we won't accept the destruction of Hezbollah? Is this Iran today trying to create a diversion away from Lebanon and get Israel's attention away from Lebanon and give Hezbollah some breathing room? It's a legitimate question. But did Iran do something today that was very foolish and that will bring severe consequences? Speaking of consequences, the two terrorists who gunned down and murdered 6 people today in Jaffa, just south of Tel Aviv, they were killed by security forces. But again, this attack came just as the alerts were coming that Iran was firing directly ballistic missiles at Israel. 2 terrorists, 2 Palestinian terrorists, murdered 6 Israelis, wounded many more in a mass shooting in the beautiful port city of Jaffa, just south of Tel Aviv. So folks, keep all those people who were affected by this in your prayers. And evil, it seems, never sleeps, especially in that region where there's such spiritual warfare in the Middle East. Read the book of Daniel and the Prince of Persia and Michael fighting. Just incredible stories of the massive spiritual warfare in that region, in the world's most chaotic and volatile region. And hey, when something happens there, and we're coming to you live with all the breaking news, commentary, analysis, again, from a biblical perspective, be sure to subscribe here. And hey, again, reminder, if you're just joining us tonight, we're going 90 minutes solid, folks, on broadcast, on TBN, the world's largest Christian television network. And if you want to watch online, you can watch at TBN Plus, the app. But on TBN, if you want to watch on the big screen, I'm old school. I like to watch on the big screen. But you can watch on TBN 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time until 9 p.m. Eastern Time, a full 90-minute breakdown. And by that time, you may have Israel striking back. Who knows what the next few hours will bring in? I'd say expect the unexpected in these volatile Bible times. These are Bible times. We've been saying it now for the past few years. Prophetic times, no doubt. So tune in tonight on TBN. 7:30 p.m. Eastern to 9 p.m. Eastern live. We've got a, jam-packed with great guests from Israel, from experts. Yair Pinto's with us, our dear friend, TBN Israel correspondent. Check that out. Keep this all in prayer, folks. You live in Bible times. And if you live in Bible times, it seems a pretty good thing to me to pray through. So keep it all in prayer. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem, for a divine Iron Dome over Israel right now. Until next time, keep it in prayer. God bless you, and remember, never hold your peace. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.